Dates people don't take them seriously until one burns itself into their memory. Most days blur together, don't they? You wake up, you repeat, you drag yourself through the same routines, the same faces, the same noises. Nothing new, nothing special, nothing worth remembering. But then, there are days marked, carved, whispered in the dark. Days that don't wait for your permission. They arrive whether you're ready or not. And September 3rd, that's not just another square on the calendar. That's a message disguised as a day. And it's not written in ink. It's delivered in footsteps you don't hear until the knock rattles your door. Not every date is ordinary. Some are marked for destiny. People walk around like time is just numbers on a clock, just another page on the calendar. They don't notice how some days feel heavier, how the air tastes different, how the shadows stretch a little longer, how silence presses in a way it usually doesn't. That's not just coincidence. That's not the universe playing dice. That's the calendar laughing at you, whispering that this day isn't like the rest. And most don't see it until it slaps them across the face. Imagine you've been living the same routine, same dull rhythm, waking up, eating, working, scrolling, sleeping, over and over. A little hamster in a wheel running nowhere fast. Then suddenly, a day arrives, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't sit quietly in the line of other days. It doesn't wait its turn. It barges in like it owns the place. That's what I mean by a date marked for destiny. It carries weight before it even arrives. You feel it coming, even if you deny it. Destiny doesn't send polite invitations. It doesn't knock on your door and ask if it's convenient. It crashes in when you least expect it, and suddenly, everything you thought was stable starts shaking. You know why? Because some days are not about keeping balance. They're about throwing you off so you can finally move. You think your safe little cage is freedom until the floor disappears beneath you. And that's when you realize this day was always coming. It was marked before you even breathed your first breath. The beauty of a marked day is that it makes fools of planners. People love to plan, don't they? Write things down, make lists, prepare for next week, next year, next decade. But the date that matters most isn't on their list. It isn't on their calendar. They don't see it coming. And when it comes, it tears up their little blueprints, sets fire to their maps, and shows them that life doesn't bend to their schedule. Life bends them. Think of the strangest moments in your life. Did you expect them? The betrayal that burned. The opportunity that fell in your lap. The call that changed everything. You didn't predict it. You couldn't. Because destiny doesn't care about your predictions. It cares about timing. And timing isn't your friend. Timing is a trickster. It waits until you're distracted, until you think you've got control. Then it flips the table. That's when the marked day arrives. You can sense it if you're awake. There are signs, little tremors before the quake. People slip into your life who don't belong. Random coincidences stack up like dominoes. The air feels charged, like the static before a storm. Most ignore it. They think they're paranoid. They laugh it off. But the ones who know, the ones who've been through it, they recognize the smell of change before the fire even starts. They know not every day is ordinary. Some are dressed in disguise, carrying destiny on their back. And here's the cruel part. These days don't announce themselves in neon. They look ordinary on the outside. You wake up, drink your coffee, put on your shoes, maybe complain about traffic. But hidden in the folds of that day is a knife, a crown, a door, a decision. Something that will carve you open, crown you with new power. Open a door you never saw, or force you to make a choice that rewrites your entire story. You only realize how marked it was when you look back, when the pieces fall into place, when you whisper to yourself, that was the day everything shifted. People love to talk about destiny like it's some far-off concept, a dream waiting at the finish line. But no, destiny isn't at the end. It hides in a date waiting to ambush you. The ordinary days trick you, lull you into thinking life is predictable. Then a marked day arrives, and suddenly you're standing in the ruins of your old world, staring at the path you never imagined, asking yourself how it all changed so fast. Not every date is ordinary. Some are written in ink that only reveals itself under fire. Some are carved into the bones of time, waiting for you to collide with them. And when that collision happens, when the marked day finally arrives, you don't get to step aside or ignore it. You're dragged into it, whether you're ready or not. Because destiny doesn't care if you're prepared. It only cares that the time has come. Secrets are never as quiet as people think. They believe if they smile wide enough, talk loud enough, keep moving fast enough, the truth will stay buried. But secrets, they have a pulse. They breathe in the dark, they whisper at night. They crawl beneath the skin until they find a way to surface. You can cover them with laughter. You can drown them in distractions. You can bury them under lies, but they rot through eventually. And when they rot, the stench fills the air, and everyone smells what you thought was hidden. Isn't it funny how people walk around pretending to be whole, pretending to be clean, pretending to be unbroken? They shake your hand with confidence. They post their smiling photos. They say all the right words. But behind those smiles, their sickness festers. Not always a sickness of the body. Sometimes it's of the soul, the mind, the heart. Jealousy, greed, shame, betrayal. They wear it like invisible scars, and they think no one notices. But the thing about darkness is, eventually the light finds it. You ever watch how lies unravel? At first it's neat, tidy, convincing. Then a thread gets pulled, just one tiny thread. A detail slips, a story doesn't line up, a crack forms in the mask. That's all it takes. Once the thread is pulled, the whole tapestry collapses. There's sickness, there's secret, it spills out in the open. And people gasp, people act surprised. But the truth is, it was always there. You just weren't paying attention. The cruel joke is that exposure doesn't happen when it's convenient for them. No, it happens when it hurts the most. When they've built the biggest stage, when they've gathered the most applause, when they think they're untouchable. That's when the curtain gets ripped away. That's when their sickness is displayed under the brightest lights. And oh, how fast people scatter. Friends who once praised them vanish. Supporters turn to critics. Lovers turn cold. Because no one wants to be near decay once it's visible. But that's the game, isn't it? Hide long enough and you start to believe your own performance. You think the sickness isn't real anymore, that it's gone. You think you beat it by pretending. But rot doesn't vanish just because you cover it in perfume. It grows stronger, hungrier, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. That's why the reveal always feels catastrophic, because the sickness has had time to spread in silence, while everyone was clapping for the mask. And when it's revealed, the world doesn't just see what's broken, they see who you really are. The sickness unmasks you in ways you could never prepare for. You don't get to control the story anymore. The story controls you. You thought you had the power, but now the whispers turn into shouts, and the whispers were always louder than your performance. There's something delicious about the inevitability of it all. Secrets demand to be known. Sickness demands to be seen. No matter how carefully you hide, the truth has claws. It tears through the fabric of lies, through the makeup, through the smiles, until it stands bare, undeniable. That's why those who spend their lives hiding never rest. They look over their shoulder, they fear shadows, they live with a tightness in their chest. Because deep down, they know the reveal is coming. They just don't know when. And oh, the irony. The very people they fooled, the very ones they manipulated with their mask, are the ones who will be first in line to point fingers when the sickness is revealed. Admiration flips to disgust in seconds. Applause to condemnation. That's how fragile the illusion is. One crack, and the whole kingdom collapses. So people hide their sickness, but the truth has a way of dragging it out into the open. And when it's revealed, it isn't polite, it isn't quiet, it isn't gentle. It's loud, messy, cruel. It exposes everything they thought they buried forever. Because no matter how deep you dig, no matter how far you run, the sickness doesn't die in silence. It waits. And when the time is right, it rises. People walk around thinking they can control the script, as if life will obey their plans. They hide what's fragile, what's rotting, what's broken, and they put on a smile, a mask, a costume, like actors on a stage. They think they're clever, as if they can rewrite the ending. But here's the punchline. Life doesn't follow your script. It follows its own. And when the curtain lifts, the truth doesn't ask for permission to enter. It barges in, unapologetic, ruthless, exposing everything you tried to keep hidden. Funny thing about hidden sickness, it doesn't stay hidden. You think you can outsmart it. Pretend long enough, act strong enough, and maybe it'll forget about you. But it's patient, oh so patient. It waits in the dark corners of your life, feeding off every lie you tell, every smile you fake, every mask you wear. It grows stronger while you grow weaker, and you don't even notice. Until one day, it decides the show is over. And when that moment comes, it doesn't whisper, it screams. You see, the reveal always feels like betrayal. But the truth, the betrayal started long before the exposure. You betrayed yourself the moment you thought you could hide it forever. You told yourself, no one needs to know, I'll just carry it alone. But sickness isn't something you carry. It carries you. It drags you, bends you, twists you, until your reflection isn't yours anymore. And then, when you're at your weakest, that's when the mask shatters. That's when everyone sees the real face you tried to keep in the shadows. Isn't it interesting how people react when the hidden finally surfaces? First shock, then disgust, then distance. They recoil, as if your truth is contagious, as if your sickness will spread to them if they stay too close. These same people who once praised you, once trusted you, now can't look you in the eye. They were never applauding you. They were applauding the version of you they believed was real. Once the illusion breaks, so does their loyalty. And what does that leave you with? Silence. The kind of silence that's heavier than any noise, heavier than any scream. Silence that forces you to sit with the truth you buried, to stare at the sickness you ignored. Because when the world turns away, all that's left is the reflection in the mirror. And that reflection doesn't lie. It shows every scar, every crack, every hidden wound you thought no one could see. It doesn't care about your excuses, your stories, your performance. It just stares back, unblinking, until you admit what you tried to deny. The cruel beauty is that revelation doesn't destroy you. It exposes you. There's a difference. Destruction is sudden, final. Exposure is slow, dragging, humiliating. It leaves you alive to feel the weight of it, to watch everything crumble piece by piece, to realize that what's being destroyed isn't just the image you created, but the illusion that you ever had control in the first place. And the longer you denied it, the sharper the exposure feels. People think they can hide forever, but forever doesn't exist. Everything surfaces. Secrets rot until the stench leaks out. Lies unravel until the truth bursts through the seams. Sickness, whether of body, heart, or mind, always demands the spotlight eventually. And when it gets it, there's no dimming the lights, no turning away, no pretending anymore. The stage becomes yours whether you want it or not. Not the stage you built, not the one you decorated, but the one that shows you as you really are, raw, exposed, unmasked. And the audience, oh, they watch. Not out of compassion, not out of kindness, but out of fascination. Because nothing grips people more than watching the hidden become visible, the lie become truth, the sickness become undeniable. That's the real joke. You spent so long fearing exposure, and yet it was the only inevitable ending. You wasted energy on the mask, on the costume, on the lies, when all along, the sickness was planning its own reveal. You never controlled it. You only delayed it. And when it comes, when it rises, when it shows itself under the brightest lights, you finally learn the truth. Not about the sickness, about yourself. People worship the illusion of safety, don't they? They build their walls, lock their doors, create routines, convince themselves that everything is predictable, that tomorrow will look like today, and today will look like yesterday. They cling to stability like a child clutching a broken toy, pretending it still works. But safety is the grandest illusion of them all. It's a card trick, a sleight of hand. You think the world owes you calm, that the ground beneath your feet won't crumble, but the truth, it's already cracking. The walls are already trembling. The joke is that the illusion only lasts until reality decides to tap on the glass, and then suddenly, all your safety shatters into shards. You see, the real danger isn't outside. It's inside. It's in the way you lie to yourself, whispering bedtime stories about control and comfort. You tell yourself, nothing will change. I'm fine. I'm secure. But deep down, you know it's all fragile, hanging by a thread. And that thread, it snaps when you least expect it. One phone call, one knock at the door, one headline, and your entire fantasy collapses. That's the comedy of it all. You never saw it coming? Because you were too busy convincing yourself it never could. People don't prepare for storms because they don't like to admit storms exist. They laugh at warnings, shrug off signs, cover their ears when the thunder rumbles. But the storm doesn't need your belief to arrive. It just needs time. And when it comes, when the sky splits open and everything you trusted is washed away. You stand there shocked, as if betrayal has just occurred. But who betrayed you? Not the world. You betrayed yourself. You were the one who believed the lie, who ignored the signs, who chose the comfort of illusion over the discomfort of truth. It's fascinating to watch how quickly masks fall when safety disappears. People who acted brave, strong, untouchable. Suddenly they're screaming, begging, scrambling. That's when you see who they really are. Not in calm moments, but in chaos. Not in sunshine, but in lightning. Safety gives people the confidence to pretend, but danger strips away the performance. The trembling hands, the darting eyes, the panic. They reveal the real script that was always hidden under the rehearsed lines. The irony is that people fear chaos, yet chaos is the only honest thing in life. Safety pretends, chaos tells the truth. Safety says, "You're in control." Chaos laughs and says, "No, you're not." Safety whispers lullabies. Chaos slams the drum. Safety gives you dreams. Chaos hands you reality. And deep down, isn't reality what you need? Because only in the break, only in the shatter, only in the collapse, do you finally see what's solid and what was always smoke. Think about it. When do you grow? When everything is quiet, soft, predictable? No. Growth happens in fire, in storms, in moments where the ground rips apart beneath you. That's when you learn what you're made of, what you can endure, how much weight your soul can carry. Safety never teaches you that. Safety lulls you into weakness. But chaos sharpens you. It carves you. It strips away the unnecessary until only the raw, unpolished, real you remains. And yet, people keep running back to their illusions. They patch up their walls, rebuild their routines, hide in the same corners, hoping maybe this time it won't break. Maybe this time the world will let them keep their little illusion. But the world doesn't care about your comfort. It doesn't negotiate with your fantasies. It doesn't wait until you're ready. It strikes when it pleases. And the sooner you understand that, the sooner you stop clinging to safety and start preparing for storms. The real secret isn't to avoid chaos. It's to dance with it. To stop pretending the world owes you protection and start embracing the fact that everything can be taken, shattered, exposed in an instant. That realization doesn't make you weaker. It makes you untouchable. Because once you stop fearing the break, you stop fearing anything at all. Safety may be an illusion, but once you let it go, once you accept that the storm is inevitable, you'll find a strange freedom in the chaos. Good news, huh? That's what they call it when the universe finally decides to stop kicking you in the teeth for a moment and tosses you a bone. Funny thing about good news, it doesn't knock politely, it barges in, unexpected, uninvited, like a loud bang in a quiet room. Most people don't even recognize it when it shows up. They're too busy drowning in their own misery, too distracted rehearsing their tragedies, convinced the world has nothing left for them but scraps. But when it comes, when it comes, it's loud, it's messy, it shatters the silence you've been living in. It doesn't whisper, it screams. And the real joke. Good news arrives when you least expect it. Funny, isn't it? Everyone wakes up thinking today will be the same as yesterday. Another day of dragging feet through the same tired routine. Coffee that doesn't taste like joy, and people who pretend to listen but never hear a thing. You convince yourself that life is predictable, boring, safe. And then bam, Something slips through the cracks. A word, a call, a knock on the door, an email you didn't think mattered. Out of nowhere, life drops something in your lap that you weren't even looking for. And the irony. The very moment you stop expecting, stop obsessing, stop chasing with that desperate hunger, that's when it walks in smiling like it owns the place. People love control. They cling to it, build their cages with it, polish the bars until they shine. But good news, it doesn't knock politely. It breaks in, flips the lights, and laughs at the face you make when your little world gets rearranged. Because the sweetest victories never arrive with a scheduled date. They like surprise, they like timing you can't script, and they like showing you how fragile your illusion of control really is. Think about it. When you expect something good, you prepare yourself, rehearse the smile, practice gratitude like it's a performance. But when it comes uninvited, when it crashes your dinner of misery, that's when it feels real. That's when you actually taste it, because your guard wasn't up, your mask wasn't fixed, and your mind wasn't polluted with what if it fails, or what if it disappears. You just stand there stunned, naked in front of a moment you didn't create, and that shock, that chaos of emotion, that's where truth lives. That's where you finally understand that life doesn't owe you anything, yet it can still hand you everything in a single breath. People will tell you to always stay ready, but staying ready means living tense, always looking over your shoulder, waiting for fireworks that never go off. No, the real magic isn't in being ready. It's in being caught off guard. Because that's when your reaction is raw, unfiltered. That's when gratitude slips out without being forced. You see, good news has no respect for calendars, no interest in your plans. It loves to arrive when you're tired, when you're broken, when you've muttered to yourself, "Nothing good ever happens to me." That's when it likes to land, because that's when it can hit the hardest, echo the loudest, pierce straight through the walls you built out of disappointment. And here's the twisted beauty. Sometimes good news comes dressed in bad packaging. You lose something, and you think it's a curse, but beneath it sits the very freedom you've been craving. The phone call that wrecks your routine might be the one that saves your life. The person who walks away might make space for someone who finally stays. The failure that slams you down might be the doorway to the win you couldn't imagine. But you don't see it at first, because you expect good news to come wrapped in bright colors with a bow. It doesn't. It comes covered in dust, in disguise, laughing while you try to make sense of it. Only later do you realize it was the best thing that could have happened. The problem with most people is they choke themselves with expectation. They demand answers, demand rewards, demand timing that matches their clock. But life doesn't work like that. The greatest gifts show up while you're too busy sulking, when you've given up asking, when you've muttered, "It's over." That's when the door creaks open and something unexpected slithers in. You weren't ready. You weren't waiting, but it still came. And you know why it feels so powerful, because it proves you were never in control. It proves that something bigger, something beyond your grasp, has a hand in this game, moving pieces you can't even see. So don't be surprised if the best moment of your life sneaks up on you while you're distracted, yawning, scrolling through nothing. That's how it likes to arrive. quiet, unscheduled, mocking the structure you thought was unbreakable. Because the truth is, good news doesn't follow rules. It doesn't need your permission. And it certainly doesn't care if you're ready. It will hit when you least expect it, and that shock, that disruption, that chaos, it's the only proof you'll ever need that life is far more alive than you give it credit for. You ever notice how people wait for happiness like it's a package delivery? Sitting by the window, checking their watch, thinking any minute, now life's gonna drop something perfect at the door. They wait, and they wait, and when nothing comes, they sigh, sink deeper into their chairs, and blame the world. But happiness, it doesn't ring the bell. It doesn't follow tracking numbers. No, it's already here, hiding in plain sight, waiting for you to notice. The problem is most people are too busy crying over what's gone wrong, too obsessed with what hasn't arrived, too blinded by disappointment to see the gift that's already breathing in the room with them. It's funny, isn't it? The human mind is a master of misery. Give it a little silence, and it fills it with complaints. Show it a problem, and it magnifies it until it swallows everything else. People have this bizarre addiction to pain. They cradle it, feed it, replay it like it's their favorite song. They've convinced themselves that if life isn't hurting, it isn't real. But the joke's on them, because while they drown in self-pity, happiness slips right past, waving with a grin, whispering, "I was here the whole time, but you were too busy crying to see me." The truth is, good news doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It's the little things. The way the sun manages to break through the blinds, even when you've locked yourself in the dark. The way laughter sneaks into the middle of a heavy day. The way a stranger holds the door like it matters. Small, ridiculous things that most people step over because they're hunting for some grand announcement, some life-changing miracle. But miracles, they're subtle. They hide behind the ordinary. And if you're too focused on pain, you'll miss the joke life's playing on you. That happiness was never missing. You just refuse to look at it. People ask, when will things finally get better? They say it like better is a place on the map. Like if they just keep walking in the right direction, they'll arrive one day. But better isn't a place, it's a choice. Every moment, you can either paint it black with your complaints or carve out light with your gratitude. The world doesn't change because you cry about it. It changes because you decide to see differently. And here's the twist. Once you shift your eyes, once you start seeing the cracks of beauty inside the mess, life suddenly starts giving you more of it. Not because it wasn't there before, but because now you're awake enough to catch it. You know what ruins most people? Comparison. They're too busy watching someone else unwrap their gift, drooling over it, to notice they've been holding one the entire time. Someone else's car, someone else's house, someone else's applause. They get hypnotized by other people's highlights, forgetting that no one shows the tears, the sleepless nights, the scars. And so they think, why not me? Why do they have it better? But here's the punchline. While they're staring through the glass, whining, life is trying to slip them something golden. But they can't take it because their hands are too full of envy. And when good news finally does show up, you know what most do? They ruin it. They doubt it. They poke holes in it like it's too good to be real. This won't last. Something bad is coming. What if it disappears? That's the disease of the mind. It can't sit still, can't accept joy without poisoning it with fear. Instead of dancing with the moment, they interrogate it, strangle it until it slips away. And then they cry again, convincing themselves happiness never visits them, when the truth is they scared it off with their suspicion. But the reality is this: good things, they don't wait for your permission. They appear whether you think you deserve them or not. They burst into your life like uninvited guests. And the only question is, will you welcome them or slam the door? Because that's where most people fail. They don't recognize a blessing when it's in their hands. They're too busy worrying about yesterday or panicking about tomorrow. And so the gift right in front of them goes to waste. The ones who laugh through the pain, the ones who find light in the cracks, they're the ones who catch it. They're the ones who don't just wait for good news, they create it. Because they understand happiness isn't about what shows up, it's about how you choose to see what's already there. They know life doesn't deliver joy like mail. It hides it in moments, in fragments, in details you'd normally ignore. And if you dare to notice it, if you dare to grab it, you find yourself winning in ways most people can't even imagine. People love to wear masks, don't they? Not the pretty kind. Not the ones you can buy at a party store. No, the invisible ones. The kind that cover up what's really rotting underneath. They wake up, look in the mirror, and tell themselves, I'm fine. They walk out into the world smiling, shaking hands, laughing on cue, while inside something is eating them alive. They think if they hide their sickness long enough, whether it's pain, guilt, envy, or fear, maybe it'll disappear. But sickness doesn't vanish just because you dress it up. No, it festers. It grows stronger. It waits for the right time to show its teeth. And when it finally does, everyone around them acts so shocked, so betrayed, as if the truth hadn't been scratching at the surface all along. It's fascinating, really. People are terrified of being exposed, so they work overtime to build illusions. They post their smiles online. They tell little lies to keep their reputation polished. They perform this act of perfection, hoping no one sees through the cracks. But the cracks are always there. Pressure has a way of breaking masks. Stress, betrayal, failure. They press down so hard that the mask starts to slip, and the sickness that's been hidden spills out in the ugliest ways. That's when people say, I never knew they were struggling. They seemed so happy. No, they didn't seem happy. They seemed rehearsed. There's a difference. The sickness of the soul. The sickness of the mind. It's the easiest thing to ignore when you're distracted. But it's also the loudest thing when you're alone. People hide it from others, but they can't hide it from themselves. That's why silence scares them, why the night feels so heavy, why they need noise, crowds, constant entertainment. Because the minute things get quiet, the truth starts whispering, and they can't bear to hear it. But here's the punchline. What you don't face eventually faces you. What you don't admit eventually exposes you. You ever notice how life has this cruel sense of humor? Secrets don't stay secrets forever. Lies don't hold their weight forever. Pretending has an expiration date. The very thing someone is desperate to bury is the thing that ends up dragging them into the light. And the revelation doesn't come gently, no. It comes at the worst time, in the worst way, when they least expect it. That's the twist. You think you're in control because you've managed to fool the people around you, but control is an illusion. Life has a way of stripping off the disguise and saying, look, this is who you really are. And the sickness isn't always physical. Sometimes it's that jealousy no one knows about, that bitterness you smile over, that anger you swallow but never digest. People think sickness is only what doctors diagnose. But no, the soul can rot long before the body does. And what's hidden in the soul eventually leaks into everything else. It poisons relationships. It destroys trust. It infects the future. You can't fake health when you're sick on the inside. It shows, even if you think you're covering it. The irony is that people hide their sickness because they want to look strong. They don't want anyone to see them weak. But true strength isn't hiding, it's admitting. And the longer someone plays the part of, I'm fine, the deeper their sickness roots itself, until the day it bursts and leaves everyone stunned. That's the show people put on a smiling mask with bleeding cracks underneath. And when the truth finally comes out, when the sickness is revealed, people gasp. They say, how could they live like that? How could they lie for so long? But the real question isn't how, it's why. And the answer is simple: fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of judgment. Fear of being seen as less. Fear keeps people shackled to their sickness. Fear convinces them to keep painting the mask instead of cleaning the wound. Fear whispers, if they see the real you, they'll never love you. But the irony, the sickness shows itself anyway, and people end up alone, rejected, exposed, the very thing they tried so hard to avoid. And you can laugh at the absurdity of it. All that effort to pretend, all that energy wasted building walls, when in the end the truth doesn't need permission to come out. It kicks down the door. It rips off the mask. It drags the sickness into the spotlight. Because what's hidden has a way of screaming louder than what's shown. And when it screams, no one can ignore it anymore. People are obsessed with control, aren't they? They cling to it like a child clutching a broken toy, thinking if they just hold on tight enough, the pieces will magically fit back together. They make their little plans, scribble their to-do lists, map out their futures with markers and calendars, as if the world owes them a perfect script. But the punchline: control is the greatest illusion of all. You think you're steering the car, but the road has already been drawn, the twist's already carved, and you're just pressing the gas hoping not to crash. Look around. People lose their minds the moment life doesn't bend to their rules. A bad day, a broken promise, an unexpected detour, and suddenly the mask slips, the smile cracks, and you see the panic behind their eyes. They hate it. They hate it when things don't go their way. They'll curse. They'll complain. They'll point fingers, as if the world conspired against them. But really, isn't it funny? They weren't in control to begin with. They were just actors reciting lines on a stage that doesn't belong to them. Have you ever noticed how fragile people get when their routines are disrupted? Miss a bus, lose a job, get rejected. They crumble like a cheap statue knocked off a shelf. That's how you know control was never real. Because if it was, one gust of wind wouldn't knock them down. But the truth is, people build their entire identity around the idea that they're calling the shots. And when that illusion shatters, They don't know who they are anymore. They were never drivers, just passengers with a fake steering wheel to keep them entertained. And here's the irony. When you stop trying to control everything, that's when the real power creeps in. Because the more you claw at control, the more it slips through your fingers. The tighter you grip, the quicker it breaks. That's why some people spend their whole lives stressed, chasing security, chasing certainty, chasing guarantees that don't exist. They trade their joy for the illusion of order, when chaos was always sitting in the back seat, grinning, waiting for the right moment to take over. You see it everywhere. In relationships, people try to control each other. Dress like this, speak like that, don't look at him, don't talk to her. And what happens? Resentment, explosions, betrayals. Because no one likes to be controlled, not really. In careers, people try to control outcomes. Work harder, stay longer, manipulate, play politics. But then the company collapses, the boss leaves, or the market crashes, and all that effort turns to dust. In life, people try to control the uncontrollable: time, death, loss. They act like if they avoid certain roads, they'll escape fate. But fate laughs the loudest, doesn't it? It doesn't knock. It barges in uninvited and reminds you who's really pulling the strings. And oh, the panic in people's eyes when they finally realize it. When they see that control was just a trick they played on themselves. That's when they break, when they spiral, when they lash out at everyone else, desperate to blame somebody for the collapse of their illusion. But deep down, they knew it all along. They knew they couldn't control the storm. They just hoped if they closed their eyes long enough, maybe it wouldn't come. But the storm always comes. That's the joke. You can dress it up, you can prepare, you can stack your sandbags and board your windows, but it's coming. And when it hits, it doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't follow your timeline. It doesn't care about your plans. It rips through everything, exposing just how little power you had. And yet, there's something freeing about it, isn't there? That moment when you finally stop pretending, when you admit you were never the one in control. It's terrifying at first, but then it feels like release. Like dropping a weight you've been carrying for years. Because the moment you stop trying to control everything, you stop being a prisoner of fear. You stop living for what could go wrong. And you start noticing what's right in front of you. But most people will never get there. They'll keep clinging to their fake steering wheels, keep scribbling their little plans, keep panicking when life tears them apart again and again. They'll keep believing the lie because the truth is too heavy. They'd rather live in the comfort of illusion than face the discomfort of reality. And that's why chaos always wins in the end. It doesn't need your belief. It doesn't need your approval. It just exists, laughing at your fragile attempts to hold it back.